In this video I want to talk about Sudička, which is a Slavic spirit of fate, most commonly appearing in a trio, who determines the fate of a newborn. Sudičky are primarily known in Western Slavic and South Slavic cultures, with the Eastern Slavic region usually having roženice take their place. They bear a resemblance to the Greek Moirai, Roman Parkae, and Norse Norns. In various Slavic languages, their names are usually derived from the word osud, which means fate in English. Examples include the Czech Sudice or Sudičky, Serbian and Croatian Sudjenice, or Bulgarian Sudjenici. Other names like those of the Eastern Slavic roženice are derived from the words rodit or rod, which essentially means birth. In Czech culture they are known as Sudičky, Sudice, Rodičky or Věštice, and the belief in them has been documented as early as the 15th century. They typically take the form of ethereal maidens or kindly grandmothers, dressed in long white gowns with hoods or veils. When determining a child's fate, they hold candles that extinguish when they pronounce their verdict. People can rarely see them, and if they do, it can paralyze them with fear. They traditionally appear at midnight after a child's birth, sending a deep sleep onto the mother. In some accounts, they do not enter the room, but remain outside behind the windows or sit on the roof foretelling the child's destiny based on the stars. Their prophecies mainly revolve around three aspects of a newborn's life: the age they will reach, their future poverty or wealth, and the manner of their death. For this reason, the third Sudička was often associated with death. It was also typical to believe that the Sudičky spin a person's life like a thread, and its length determines how many years one will live, with the eldest Sudička cutting it. To ensure a favorable fate for the child, offerings were made to these beings. People would set the table on the very first night after the child's birth. They prepared bread, salt and a knife so that the Sudičky could partake and then in peace and contentment determine a good fate for the child. In other regions, a spinning wheel and scissors were prepared for the Sudičky. Conversely, not following customs could lead to the Sudičky switching newborns. They appear in several Czech fairy tales, and today I want to talk about one by Karel Jaromír Erben called Zlaté vlasy, děda Vševěda. Zlaté vlasy means 3 golden hairs, and děd Vševěd could be translated as grandfather all-knowing, but I will be using his Czech name. The fairy tale starts with a king who gets lost in the woods during a hunt. As the night comes, he's relieved to find a cottage in a forest clearing with charcoal piles. The cottage belongs to a charcoal burner, and since his wife is about to give birth, he can't show the king a way out of the forest right away, and traveling at night would be unwise anyway, so he invites the king to spend the night in the loft on the hay. He promises that he will accompany the king in the morning and show him the way to his castle. After the charcoal burner's wife gives birth to a baby boy and everybody is asleep except the king in the loft, he notices a faint light below in the cottage. Peering through a crack in the ceiling, he sees 3 old women dressed in white robes with candles bless the newborn. The first give him bravery, the second grants him long life and the ability to overcome challenges, and the third says that he will marry the king's daughter, who has just been born. These women are the Sudičky, of course. The king is deeply troubled by the prophecy and can't sleep all night. He ponders how to prevent it, because he obviously doesn't want to give his daughter to a commoner. At dawn, the baby starts crying, and the charcoal burner discovers that his wife died. He's devastated, and because he doesn't know what he would do with the child by himself, he agrees to give the baby to the king, who offers to provide for the child. The king promises to send for the baby, and as he returns to his castle, he is greeted with joyous news that a beautiful daughter of his just had been born the previous night. It was the same night he had seen the 3 Sudičky. The king frowns and sends a servant with money to the charcoal burner's cottage to fetch the baby. The servant is instructed to drown the child on his way back, under a threat that if he doesn't do it, he will have to drink water for the rest of his life. And so he takes the baby in a basket, and when he reaches a bridge over a deep, wide river, he tosses the baby, still in the basket, into the water. When he tells the king that he carried out his command, the king heartlessly says, "Good night, uninvited son-in-law. The king believes that the baby had drowned, but it miraculously survives and floats down the river in a basket. A fisherman finds the baby while fixing his nets by the river and brings the child to his wife, who always wanted to have a son, and so they raise him as their own, naming him Plaváček, which could be loosely translated to something like swimmer or floater, as he had floated to them on the water. Years later, the boy grows up into a remarkable young man. One summer, the king rides through the area alone and asks the fisherman for water. Seeing the young man, the king inquires if he is the fisherman's son. The fisherman explains that the young man had floated down the river in a basket 20 years ago, and they had raised him as their own. The king realizes who the boy is, but quickly conceals his shock. He asks if the young man could be a messenger to his castle. The fisherman agrees, and the king writes a letter to the queen, instructing her to have the young man killed before his return. Plaváček sets out with the king's letter but gets lost in a forest, and as the night falls, he meets his godmother, Sudička, who invites him to stay the night. While Plaváček is asleep, she switches the king's letter with a new one, in which the king is instructing the queen to marry Plaváček to their daughter before the king's return. The queen arranges the wedding upon receiving the letter. Both the queen mother and the princess are pleased with the bridegroom, as he is with his royal bride. When the king returns and sees what happened, he gets angry. The queen shows him the letter, and after examining it and seeing that it's in fact his handwriting and seal, he questions his son-in-law about his journey. Plaváček tells the king about the old godmother, and the king realizes it is the same Sudička who had assigned his daughter to the charcoal burner's son. The king insists that if Plaváček wants to marry his daughter, he must bring 3 golden hairs from děd Vševěd as a dowry. He thinks that this will be the surest way to get rid of his unwelcomed son-in-law, because no one has ever returned from děd Vševěd. Brave Plaváček doesn't hesitate, says his goodbyes, and embarks on the journey. And since the Sudička is his godmother, it's easy for him to find the right path. He walks for a long time, over hills and valleys, through waters and fords, until he reaches the Black Sea, where he meets a waiting ferryman. The ferryman agrees to take him across in exchange for a promise that Plaváček will ask děd Vševěd when the ferryman's servitude would end. Plaváček accepts the deal, and the ferryman takes him across the sea. Then Plaváček reaches a rundown, sad-looking city and encounters an elderly man who can barely walk. After hearing that Plaváček is on a journey to děd Vševěd, the old man promptly brings him to the king. The king explains their plight. Their apple tree, which used to bear rejuvenating apples, had not produced fruit for 20 years. He requests Plaváček to inquire if there is any remedy from děd Vševěd and promises a royal reward. Plaváček agrees, and the king allows him to continue with his journey. In another half-ruined city, Plaváček encounters a grieving man burying his father. After hearing that Plaváček is on a journey to děd Vševěd, the man brings him to his king, who shares their problem. Their once flowing well with life-restoring water had dried out 20 years ago. The king asks Plaváček to inquire about a solution from děd Vševěd and offers a generous reward. Plaváček agrees, and the king permits him to continue with his journey. Plaváček ventures long and far through a dark forest and finally stumbles upon a vast green meadow with a golden castle, where he finds his godmother Sudička from a previous encounter. She explains that she's a mother of děd Vševěd and agrees to help Plaváček obtain the 3 golden hairs from her son. However, she tells Plaváček that he has to hide, because děd Vševěd would eat him otherwise. She provides an old wooden washtub for Plaváček to hide under. Plaváček also requests that his godmother inquire about the 3 questions he was assigned on his journey to bring back answers. She agrees to ask děd Vševěd on his behalf and tells him to listen carefully to what her son will answer. As the evening sun, an old man with a golden hat, enters the room through the western window, he senses a human presence and asks his mother if she is hiding someone. Sudička dismisses it, attributing the scent to his travels across the world during the day. The old man lets it go and sits down for dinner. After dinner, the old man, děd Vševěd, falls asleep with his golden hat in his mother's lap. She plucks one golden hair from his head, and when she throws it on the ground, it rings like a string. Yet Vševěd wakes up and asks what she wants, so she mentions a dream she had about a town with a miraculous spring of living water that had stopped flowing for 20 years. She asks if there's any help for the town. Yet Vševěd says that that's simple. They should kill the frog which is sitting on the spring, blocking the water's flow, and the spring will flow again as before. When the old man falls asleep again, his mother plucks the second golden hair from his head and throws it on the ground. He asks what she wants now, and she tells him of another dream she had about a town with an apple tree bearing rejuvenating apples that had not bore fruit for 20 years. She's wondering what the town should do. Yet Vševěd says that that's simple. All they have to do is kill the snake beneath the tree, replant it, and it will bear fruit as before. When the old man falls asleep again, his mother plucks the third golden hair and throws it on the ground. He wakes up, irritated, and she tells him about another of her dreams. This time about a ferryman at the Black Sea, who had been serving for 20 years. She asks what he should do. Yet Vševěd calls him stupid, because all the ferryman has to do is to give the oar to someone else and jump ashore. The one left with the oar will be the new ferryman. After that, Děd Vševěd tells his mother to not disturb him anymore. As the night progresses, the old man transforms into a small child, the little morning sun who flies out the eastern window in the morning. Plaváček gets the 3 golden hair from his godmother, who bids him farewell as he leaves. On his journey back, he stops at each city, and thanks to Děd Vševěd's advice, the living water and rejuvenating apples are available to the people again. As a sign of gratitude, Plaváček is given 12 white horses in the first town and 12 black horses in the second town, and also plenty of riches. When he reaches the Black Sea, the ferryman asks if Plaváček knows when he will be released. Plaváček says that he will tell him after the ferryman takes him across, which the ferryman doesn't like at first, but seeing he has no choice, he does so eventually. After Plaváček stands safely on the other shore, he tells the ferryman that he should hand over the oar to the next person who will step onto his ferry. If the ferryman jumps out onto the dry land, the person who will stay in the ferry holding the oar will have to take over, releasing the ferryman from his duty. When Plaváček returns with the 3 golden hairs of Děd Vševěd, the king can't believe his eyes. His daughter is overjoyed to see her husband. Plaváček explains how he helped other kings regain the rejuvenating apples and living water, which intrigues the king. Eager to acquire these wonders for himself, he embarks on a journey, but his greed is his downfall. And that's how the charcoal burner's son became the king's son-in-law, as Sudička has foretold, and the king, perhaps still to this day, has to ferry people across the Black Sea. I hope you enjoyed this video and the story about Plaváček. Let me know in the comments what destiny do you believe Sudička foretold for you at your birth, and I hope I'll see you in another video.